Welcome to Trudge the Road. It's sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and our nation's capital. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. We're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry, and I'm a sober alcoholic.
Jerry, start the show by letting everyone know why we do the show.
Thank you, Rich. Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to folks like ourselves who suffer from the disease of addiction, the addiction to drugs and alcohol. And every bit as important, family members and friends, you suffer tremendously, and we know that you have a lot of questions. Our goal here is to answer as many of those questions as we possibly can, and with the grace of the good Lord, provide a solution to this incredible dilemma, which is the disease of addiction.
All right, our website is trudgetheroadradio.com. There you could find Jerry and the 12 Steps.
My DVD, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Very cool DVD, and I would say a very important part of recovery if you're trying to get your head around these 12 steps. Also, you could link up with our Facebook page there, our Twitter page, and you want to catch prior episodes, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel as well. That's trudgetheroadradio.com.
We're in the Philly area. The last time that I spoke on the program, I was on my way to North Carolina for the birth of my second grandchild, and that has since taken place. Levi is here. Everything went incredibly well, but I do have to extend thank you so much to the recovering community, especially around Halifax County, North Carolina, who were just right there, as soon as I came into town. What can we do for you?
Wow.
To be there of any help that they possibly could, and to provide, what is so important for me is that family that I'm just so moved and so grateful to those folks. And this is just the fabric of the community of recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you were just great. Everything went great, and I'm a grandfather for the second time. Yay! Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
His name is Levi. He looks just like me.
Yeah, just like that old Elton John song.
Yeah,
Levi.
no, that's Levon.
We did that last time. Too.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep screwing that up.
Dane Bramage there, babe. That's
Hey, listen, live and let live is our first topic. And just before we get to this, I do want to tell you that coming up in a little bit, we're going to be talking to David Rotenberg from the Caron Treatment Centers. Now, a couple of weeks ago, you sat down with David and a couple of young girls.
They were just teenagers, 16 and how old were they, Matt? 16 and 17, weren't they?
I think something like that.
Yeah, they were young.
And we're going to have some boys on at about the same age who have, have just incredible consequences from this disease that they have. It can hit early, and it's hitting earlier and earlier. And find out what happened, what it's been like for them here in treatment, and what the plan is, because there's got to be a plan to assimilate back into society and not use again. And we'll talk to them and David. They've got a great program here at Caron, so we're really excited about that.
All right, our first topic today, though, in this first segment is live and let live.
It's a great topic, and you hear that, of course, all over. You don't hear it just within the recovering community, but it's much more than just a euphemism within our culture. We really believe live and let live, and the beauty of it is so much of the opportunity for us to become friends is on a spiritual level as we meet each other within the recovering community. And let me put it this way, when we get here, if you ever felt like, the black sheep of your family or the black sheep of society, and you get into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and found out you discovered the rest of the herd. Right. Here we are, we're all right here, and that's absolutely wonderful. And it just, that camaraderie, it's that understanding of each other's pain that we have. It's not communicated so much, but it is certainly well known. But we get to know people from all kinds of different, from A to Z, because the disease does not discriminate. And I bring up Tom and Tom, who are both wonderful friends of mine. Tom A. Lives in Berkeley, California.
Okay.
And is very much, you would say, synonymous with what the reputation of Berkeley, San Francisco, a very liberal man.
Right.
And one of the kindest, most gentle, would do anything for anyone, heart of gold type of people who I respect and admire. And what he does for people who suffer from this disease certainly will earn him a position in heaven. I'm confident with that. Plus, just on top of that, he is a priest for an occupation, but that's just kind of, what he does for a living. I'm talking about him being what we are, and that's alcoholics. But again, he is that definite Berkeley set, if you will. All right. Now, he was invited to speak, and he speaks all across the country, in San Antonio, Texas. And Tom, who I also happen to know, got to know while I was in Texas, was the man on the other end who was handling all the arrangements
Now, this is another Tom, correct?
Right. They just happen to both be named Tom.
We've got Berkeley Tom and we've got
San Antonio Tom.
Okay, just so we can keep them separate.
All right. Now we're talking about San Antonio Tom. The same attributes, the nicest, kindest, friendliest, heart of a gold, would do anything for anyone, especially someone who is suffering from this disease. Those exact same attributes, But
he's not a priest.
No, he is not.
Okay.
He's a Southern Baptist, and just the opposite you'd find in Berkeley, California.
Okay, very conservative.
Extremely conservative. All right. So the only relationship they have is over the telephone or emails as they get prepared for this. Well, they just had so much in common about recovery and about those attributes that I just spoke about, and developed this incredible relationship with each other via email, texting, and the phone, to the point where they were so looking forward to actually meeting each other. Now, neither of them really knows anything about the way they feel about all the other stuff in life,
Right.
All right, so...
In other words, the name Obama or Bush never came up.
Right. All right. So here's what happened. So Berkeley, San Francisco Tom, he flies to San Antonio to speak. San Antonio Tom picks him up, and they just have the most wonderful conversation from the ride back to the airport, gets him set up in the hotel and says, I want you to come over to the house, meet the family and all that. Can't wait to do it. So Berkeley Tom, changes and gets all ready, gets in the car, picks him up, and they take him back over. And Berkeley Tom said that the first thing he saw when he walked in the house was an autographed picture of Sarah Palin on the piano. And then was taken into an area of the home that they called the Reagan Room. And it was, a lot of symbols of the Reagan administration and things of that nature. So as you can see, bipolar, is the political and, social type of maybe identification we would make between each other. And what did it become to them? A scream. How funny is this? The two people who are so completely opposite in everything we really think about in the practicality of being in society,
right,
yet so totally and completely connected on what are the really important things in life, all those attributes. You see, they are the same, and this is the gift of recovery. It doesn't matter who you are. We live and let live as people are and what they want to believe in, because it doesn't make any difference. What we do and how we behave and how we act is a gift of spirituality. It is love. And both of these men do the exact same thing. When there is an alcoholic who is suffering and needs their help, both of them will address it with the same energy, love, and attention as the other. And that's what kind of, I think, separates us to a point where we can identify ourselves as being spiritual beings. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's referred to as being an agent of God. That is the word that Bill used when he wrote it. And I think, and I look at these guys, and they're both of the Tom and Tom, San Antonio Tom and Berkeley Tom, they're angels. To me, they're both angels, and I mean that literally in the fact that I believe that when an alcoholic or a drug addict uses those words each one of us has, God help me, God always answers. And what does he do? He sends us. He sends us. That's what he does. That's the answer when you come to us. And both of these men, when they hear that cry, will act immediately, no matter what they are doing. That becomes more important. And that, to me, is you are acting literally on behalf of God while on earth. And I think that is such a huge and the magnificent part of the spiritual journey that we experience here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, we it's that feeling of the alcohol, that feeling of the drugs, that we always wanted to change the way we feel. We use those things. Well, now we are changing the way that we feel, and we feel great because we're doing the next right thing and going even a step further of doing the next right thing. Regardless of who we are, where we came from, what we believe in, what our religion or political beliefs are, it is the same when we're in this journey or on this journey of recovery, and how we all convive together. And regardless of where you were, the black sheep of society or your family, welcome to the rest of the herd. And that's a kind of in our spiritual journey.
How funny God must have been thinking when he put these two together.
Oh, yeah.
They started emailing each other. He had to be thinking, this is going to be great.
That's one thing I believe in, is that God definitely has a sense of humor. And frankly, I think it's a little twisted.
It is pretty twisted. But I think it's a great example of how we can set aside, when we focus on things like recovery, say you and I are focused on things like recovery.
Because it's live or die.
Who cares?
Exactly. It doesn't make any difference.
Who cares you like the Philadelphia Eagles and I like the Redskins? We can set all that stuff aside because it really doesn't matter. And I know that's just kind of a loose example, but It goes for pretty much everything when you're talking about live and let live. You're Jerry, the recovering alcoholic, and I'm Rich, the recovered drug addict. And together, I mean, that's where we keep our focus when we're talking. Outside of that, all the other things are just peripheral.
I can give you such a beauty of being involved in other cultures. I got sober within the African American culture. They are the ones who took me in and allowed me to become well, and I've done my best to pay that debt back. I've had so much experience within the Latin community, the Mexican community, the Puerto Rican community, and to be just absolutely, if you will, sucked into the culture and to be an absolute part of it has just enriched my life so much. That I really can't even explain it. And again, it's that it all comes down to that understanding that we have for each other. It's that we understand each other's pain. And having that understanding of pain really lets us know about 90% of, I know 90% about you when you walk in the door. It's just the details I don't know. It's because we are so much the same. And when we find that out, that we are the same, we recover the same, and we stay together so that we can maintain this sobriety. And, and I'll give you an example. The Jews, for example, they write about the Holocaust. They convene about the Holocaust. They talk about the Holocaust. They do that because they are afraid if they don't, it will happen again. And that is what we do here. We convene, we talk about this, we write about this, and we stay together because if we don't, it will happen again. That's how deadly this disease is and how important this level of communication that we have stays open between us and how beautiful the journey is to be blessed with the spirituality of the whole adventure.
No, I think that's very well said. And it is the commonality. It's the other 10% that make us different. And that's the beauty of the world, when you can make people, when people are different, I mean, if we were all just the same, life would be pretty boring.
Especially if it was like you.
Yeah.
I mean that. No,
I agree with you 100%. Hey, listen, David Rotenberg's coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you so much. I think David is one of the finest clinicians in the United States. I think Caron's one of the best treatment centers in the United States. There are many, many, many. We're grateful to be here and to have an opportunity to talk to a couple of young men today.
Absolutely. And Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Center. Stick around. David Rotenberg and a couple of young dudes are coming in next right here on Trudge the Road, part of the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry sits down with David Rotenberg from Caron Treatment Centers. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
There is a new face of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more. At Northbound Treatment Services in Newport Beach, California, we believe that treatment is the beginning of a new way of life. Our brand signifies our own commitment to help our clients find new direction and strength on their road to recovery. Our mission is simple: to assist our clients in successfully celebrating 1 year of continuous sobriety. This mission is achieved through unique treatment models, individualized treatment plans, graduated phase systems, and exceptional staff, 12-step philosophies, and a strong alumni program. The Northbound experience focuses on effectively delivering innovative treatment. We are located in the beautiful and vibrant recovering community of Orange County, California. The Northbound experience takes our clients beyond treatment. We are Northbound.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philly, and the nation's capital. They can be reached by calling 800-854-6023 or go to their website. It is full of great information. It's Caron.org. That's Caron.org. trudgetherroad.org. My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic, and Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to people like myself who suffer from the disease of addiction to alcohol and drugs. And every bit as important, family members and friends, we know that you suffer tremendously, and you've got a lot of questions. And that's our goal here today, is to answer as many of those questions as we possibly can. David Rotenberg will join us here in just a second. Matt, the producer, standing back there. Give us the information, the discretionary time information, so people know how to get a hold of us.
Well, thank you, Jerry. I will do
Matt.
so.
Please.
You can find all the information you need at our website, trudgetherroadradio.com. There you can link to our YouTube page, which is Trudge the Road Radio. You can find us on Facebook, which is Trudge the Road Radio, or you can go to Twitter at TTR Show and check us out.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Matt, the producer.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Hey, we've got a regular guest is back with us, David Rotenberg. David is Vice President of Treatment at Caron, and he specializes in co-occurring mental health issues, and especially those, how they relate to the family. And I'm going to start that again. All right, And back with us is David Rotenberg. David is Vice President of Treatment at Caron, specializing in co-occurring mental health disorders, relapse, and family issues, especially related to adolescent and young adults, which is what we're going to talk about. David, first, it's great to have you back. Thank you very, very much.
Always a pleasure, Jared. Great to be back.
We get a lot of comments on the shows we do from around the country, but remember we had Valerie and Christina on about 5 weeks ago. And two young ladies who were in treatment here at Caron, and gave their stories, and they were compelling, to say the least. Very young girls who were beginning this journey of epic proportion, as we like to call it, and how they got here, what's happened to them at Caron, and how they are going to assimilate back into society in a healthy manner. One of the things, before we get into our guest today, we're going to talk to a young man today, or a teenager, if you will, and find out a little bit about his story, Frank. But first, if we could, just to catch people up who may not be kind of aware, one of the things that you emphasize here at Caron, and the thing that we heard the most from our especially clinical folks who listen across the country, was the cultural literacy that you use as a key element to treatment of adolescents and to young adults. Now, if you would kind of define what that cultural literacy is, and how important it is in just a basic communication with your patients.
To me, cultural literacy, Jer, means adult authority figures and people who work with adolescents, teachers, parents, administrators in schools, coaches. Those are people who need to understand the style, the language, the style of clothing, the body language, what moves kids across the chessboard of life. Okay, so to me, cultural literacy, as a professional clinician who works with adolescents, I need to understand what's going on any number of internet sites. I need to understand what kids are listening to with music, what clothes they're wearing, what NBA star moves the needle, so to speak. No pun intended, by the way. Stuff like that. Who's a cultural icon of the moment? What kind of music is in? What kind of music is out? I need to appreciate that. I can't just be a 46-year-old man who says, I don't like rap music, and that's where it ends. No, if you want to be culturally literate, you need to not necessarily like rap music, but you need to understand why kids like it, why it moves them around. You may not like baggy clothing. You might not like pants that sag, but you need to understand why kids like it and wear it, what makes them feel comfortable. To me, that means you're an adult who's culturally literate. You know,
I can, from my own experience, prove that you're right, because I'm a baby boomer, and when I got into recovery, the Greatest Generation was still here and still very much in charge of the recovery program. And as you know, the Greatest Generation, the baby boomers, had a little falling out, and as a matter of fact, sociologists gave it name, the generation gap. But that was incredibly difficult for me, and I am not blaming them. You know, I'm understanding and appreciating their sociology. But for me to assimilate into recovery, when I had, of course, at that time, the long hair, the facial hair, all of the issues of being a hippie, if you will, which they wouldn't tolerate, you know. And again, I'm not being disrespectful, but step one was cut that damn hair, you know. And it did create a tremendous amount of difficulty. And people who are in our culture, my age, who had to go through that, would certainly appreciate it. And that brings me to the second part of what I want to ask you and talk about, is the new face of addiction. And this is the second thing that we heard the most close from when we had Valerie and Christina on here is the new face of addiction. And using myself as an example as a baby boomer, I'll take that back. Just a decade ago, 10 years ago, and you were doing this 10 years ago, every Sunday morning I go to a detox center, just part of my recovery program. And 10 years ago, it's gender specific, but the men in there were, I would say, from their late 20s to mid 50s, and they were in there because of alcohol. And you could kind of count on that. In a 10-year period, just 10 years, the complete face has absolutely changed. And now it's a 17, 18, 19-year-old boy, and the issue is usually opiates or just a whole sling of all kinds of different drugs. And it is a new face, and this is a new challenge because we are facing a new sociology that maybe our awareness of is minimal, and that at Caron is just exceptional at what you're doing to be able to open that up.
The age of onset is earlier. The availability of drugs of all kinds, more drugs than we ever thought possible, Jared, and new drugs evolving every year. The availability of information on the internet, the virtual peer network on the internet that is pro-drug and telling you how to be a drug user, a drug maker, a drug taker, where to get it. That is a collision and a synergy that really moves these kids into an earlier onset of use. Okay, and so when you talk about the face of addiction, you're talking about earlier onset, you're talking about kids getting way deep, as you said, into poly-drug use, meaning we call that 3 or more drugs, including a lot of opiates, heroin, prescription. You'll hear from Frank later about his prescription use, or I should say off-label prescription use eventually. You'll hear, all sorts of that stuff is happening. So from 10 years, till today, as you mentioned, Jerry, you went from 36 adolescent beds at Caron 10 years ago to 113 beds
in a decade
for adolescent and young adult treatment. So people 25 and under on this campus, 113 beds. When 10, maybe a little more than 10 years ago, that was unheard of. An 18-year-old kid, Frank's going to be 18 in November.
Right.
He would have been in the adult general population
just like I was, yeah.
in the early 90s in many rehabs. Now, all of a sudden, he's pushing 18, and he's appropriately placed in an adolescent treatment unit that, by the way, is in a center that has a young adult population in between adolescent and regular adult. That's the changing face of treatment. Okay, there's subcategories and subcultures of addiction and treatment that need to be addressed in any treatment center or setting worth its salt.
And then we have to accept, I think, too, as treatment professionals on my end, that some of us, and I'll just use the words, are culturally ignorant when it comes to, especially obtaining drugs. Now, I haven't used heroin in 25 years, but I would take a bet that I could find some in 90 minutes. I just, had, but how would I do it? The old school, right back to the street, how that and today, that just isn't necessary, maybe.
Oh, man, you went to the street if you needed heroin. I guarantee you Frank doesn't have to leave the classroom.
Wow.
And that's a significant changing face of our addiction culture. In other words, even when I grew up in the mid-'80s, the early and mid-'80s, the worst, most knee-deep drug user wasn't banging heroin here. It wasn't snorting heroin. You couldn't get heroin in school. You went to the streets. You went to the inner city.
That's where it was.
Which was where it was. Nowadays, you got a 17, almost 18-year-old kid, suburban, white, middle class kid.
Sure.
From, prep schools where he doesn't have to leave a prep school campus to get heroin.
Just the opposite of the picture. 90% of the people have in their mind right now what this kid looks like and who this kid is.
Changing face of addiction indeed, which means what? Changing face of treatment.
Exactly. And Caron, I do compliment you, as so many other treatment centers are absolutely on top of it. Not understanding always the problem, and with the information and the amount that we are receiving here in such a short period of time, collectively, we need to all just kind of pay attention and find out a little bit about the sociology of Frank. He's going to tell us where he came from, what happened, how he got here, and what the future like. And I think that's a really important role that Caron plays is, you just don't come in here and dust him off for 28 days. These are young people who don't have living skills and do have this incredible disease, so there is planning that goes into effect.
There's planning, and there's longer lengths of stay than the traditional 28 days that you mentioned. As Frank will tell you, he's here past that, and he's here past that for a reason, Jerry. You don't just take a 4-week length of stay, like pulling a cast off a broken leg, and
it's
think
healed.
it's fixed.
Right.
That's not how it goes, man. He's got to be immersed in an adolescent sober culture for as long as possible. Okay, he's got to have treatment and therapy for as long as you can, and he's got to, even after 120 days at Caron, think about the next sober stop, which could be a therapeutic boarding school. For many of our patients, it could be a halfway house if they're over 18.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of our folks aren't even done after 120 days. And so that myth that it's 28 and done needs to be dispelled. And people need to be realistic about treatment and what that means.
And, we'll use myself as an example as a young man at 20 going to and showing up in a 28-day treatment center, and I would get dusted off, cleaned up, and feel a whole lot better. But they would just tell me things like change people, places, and things. There would be no guidance after that. I really wasn't even sure what that meant. Then they'd say get a sponsor, and I would go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't see a sponsor. All I saw was another adult who was going to yell at me.
The changing face of addiction treatment sounds a lot different than that, Jerry. You got a heavy dose of 12-step, you got a heavy dose of AA, and that's great. And we still utilize that.
100%, I know.
12-step integration is everywhere at Caron. But what you didn't say is, was there a psychological assessment? Was there a psychiatric follow-up? Was there a physical fitness regimen? Was there a nutritional assessment? Was there pastoral care? Was there immersion in a like culture, like an adolescent group? So I think at Caron, you see the illustration of what a treatment center should be: multi-layered, multifaceted, integrated systems that are working for the collective good of an individual, and not just a simple select sort of bullet-pointed program.
Terrific. It is the best. We're going to find out a lot more about it. We're going to meet Frank here. That's David Rotenberg, Vice President of Treatment at Caron, who is our sponsor. And we'll be back, and we're going to meet Frank here shortly. In just a moment on Trudge the Road, brought to you by Caron on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry is joined by Frank, a young man who is just beginning his journey of epic proportions. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
At Northbound Treatment Services in Newport Beach, California, we believe that treatment is the beginning of a new way of life. Our brand signifies our own commitment to help our clients find new direction and strength on their road to recovery. Our mission is simple: to assist our clients in successfully celebrating 1 year of continuous sobriety. This mission is achieved through unique treatment models, individualized treatment plans, graduated phase systems, and exceptional staff, 12-step philosophies, and a strong alumni program. The Northbound experience focuses on effectively delivering innovative treatment. We are located in the beautiful and vibrant recovering community of Orange County, California. The Northbound experience takes our clients beyond treatment. We are Northbound.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Trudge the Road Radio. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Great facilities in Pennsylvania, where we are today, by the way. Florida, Texas also. They got offices in Bermuda, Boston, the Big Apple, Philly, and Washington, D.C. You can reach them by calling 800-854-6023. Or go to their website. It has all kinds of great information. It's caron.org. That's CARON.org. My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic, and Trudge Road is a radio program dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to alcohol and drugs. And every bit as important, our family members and friends, we know that you suffer tremendously, and you got a lot of questions. And that's our goal, is to answer as many of those questions as we possibly can, and with the grace of the good Lord above, provide a solution to this incredible dilemma, which is the disease of addiction. Matt, the producer, is here with us, and we want folks to be able to get in contact with us anytime, if you would. And we'd really be, if I could, grateful if you could, when you get to the point in one of your recovery room meetings, when they get to those non-AA related announcements, if you could bring up Trudge the Road and you found it here on your local radio station or on YouTube, we would really appreciate that. And speaking of which, if you would.
All you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, go to trudgetheroadradio.com. Simple as that. You will find everything you need. our YouTube page, our Facebook, our Twitter, everything that's going on in the world of Trudge the Road, and all that is good in the world of recovery.
Thank you very much.
If I may, real quick, I got a serious question for David.
Absolutely.
So you say you've been listening to some rap music. You banging that new Drake album or what, dude? I just got to know.
I appreciate Drake, who, by the way, I believe is a Jewish rapper, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
So I'm very proud of that in many ways. My cultural literacy and my Jewish heritage.
That's right.
All in one.
Well, I've got the Seals and Crofts CD going out in my car.
There you go. Keeping it real.
Keeping it real. All right. Hey, well, listen, we've been telling you about Frank, and we've been sitting here talking to him, getting to know him a little bit better. And Frank is in treatment right now here at Caron, and has quite a little story to tell us. Let's just begin first. You're 17 years old, right?
Yep.
Well, welcome first. Thank you for doing this, man. This takes a lot of guts, and we appreciate that. And we'll tell you up front, we're going to follow you. I mean, not like a stalker, but down the road, we're going to continue and watch and see how you're doing, and hopefully, as you age and become more and more sober, you'll be back here more and more and more and more. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right, dude. A little bit about the obvious. You're 17 years old and you're in a drug and alcohol treatment center. How the heck did that happen? Huh?
All right. Well, I guess I'll start off my upraising. I was adopted at birth by my single mother. Don't know anything about my birth parents, so no idea if
the genetics might be there.
Yeah,
right.
no idea. But
bet they are.
Yeah,
right.
I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
But I was brought up in a rich white suburban neighborhood. Always been well behaved as a child. Didn't really have any behavioral problems. Was always a pretty good kid. Outgoing. Made a lot of friends. Then middle school hit. Started drinking when I was 13.
Okay, so up until the point of your 13, you're socially interacting pretty well.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so at 13, we find alcohol?
Yes.
All right, tell us.
I was at a friend's vacation home. Parents provided alcohol for us. So, it was pretty easy to get. And it just kind of started from there. Took a bit of a break after that. But then that summer, I remember smoking weed for the first time. And everybody says, you don't get high your first time. But I got very, very high. And it went off from there. It was off to the races. I was smoking every day, got caught a few times. Didn't really matter to me. I was like, oh, I like this feeling. Might as well
hold on to it. Keep going.
Yeah.
Just to give folks a little bit of an update, the weed that he's talking about ain't the weed you were smoking at a Grateful Dead show back in the 70s.
No. Yeah, I was going to say, if you, that's not the weed we smoked when we were kids, or your mom and dad may have smoked. The weed of today, ladies and gentlemen, is 20, 30, 40 times more potent, depending on who you ask, than yesterday's weed. When you think about the developing adolescent brain and impulse control and decision making and other details that go along with growing up, you realize that pickling it, if you will, or smoking 40 times more potent weed is not a great idea, especially if you do it on a consistent basis.
Continual basis. As a matter of fact, Dr. Ken, when he was here, mentioned that in some cases the marijuana is in such intensity today that the detox can be compared to heroin in its later stages.
It's that potent. And one more thing to add, that set of parents, and we know many parents who have done this, as long as the kids drink in the house, they're cool. Even if the kids are only 13 years old, not so much, ladies and gentlemen. If you hear that vignette and it's you, or you're thinking about that being you, think again. You're giving a tacit green light to really young age of onset alcohol and drug use. And it's known and understood statistically that kids who make it to the age of 15 or greater without using have a 4 times more likelihood of not becoming addicted.
Wow.
Very significant stat there, Jared.
That is incredibly significant. Thank you very much. So you're smoking the weed, what you in the 70s called Colombian, what you probably called Belfast Widowmaker, something of that nature. So, all right, get back to the weed here. So you're smoking it basically, you're burning in the morning, just kind of as soon as you get up, and here we go. Take us through your day.
Every single day, I'd wake up, smoke, get breakfast, smoke, take a lunch break, smoke. It just went on like that for my whole freshman year. Never really gotten any legal or school trouble, just with my mother, which I, at the time, did not really think twice about. I was just like, oh, whatever. It's not a big deal. I was drinking. I was a weekend drinker my freshman year, 15, 16 years old. Not really big into it until sophomore year, after I got caught at a school-funded dance blacked out. Again, I was blacked out, so I don't remember what happened.
Okay, let me just go to David. I don't want to interrupt you, but David, I want
totally
you to explain to everybody what a blackout is.
Blackout is when you're up on your feet, most likely, still dancing, still talking to people, in this case, a dance, but you don't remember it. And the next day, bits and pieces may come back to you, but the real truth is usually uglier than the bits and pieces.
Exactly.
Okay, for those of us walking around who've walked around in a blackout, never a pretty ending.
No. Okay? Alcoholic amnesia with consequences.
Oh, man. How many times did I have to apologize for my behavior from the night before?
When you weren't even sure 100% what you were apologizing for.
That's right. I just knew I was guilty of something wrong.
You knew the two things. It was bad and you were guilty.
But if we could stay on that, the cycle of addiction, Jerry, as you know, that's a very dark kind of guilt, a very depressing kind of guilt. And my active addiction, found myself going right back to the alcohol to get rid of that guilt, to get rid of that remorse. What a vicious cycle. I can remember having my first drinks of the night, knowing that it was liable to lead to unenviable consequences and still not being able to stop. Loss of control, powerlessness.
Exactly. And it came early for Frank. So we're back. Now, I understand, that you're a highly competent young athlete, really good, and you play lacrosse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of where we found a change in your behavior, which would be the entrance of drugs. Now, had you tried drugs before you were injured and a doctor gave you some?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I dabbled with Perk 30s. Oxycontin a few times, things of that nature. Not seriously, just here and there when someone would offer them to me.
These are, if you don't know, those are opiates, ladies and gentlemen. All right, opiates. Okay, go ahead.
Never really turned anything down that was given to me, except for heroin.
So you're using weed, you're drinking, and you have a lacrosse injury?
I do.
What happened?
Well, I was first game back off of a suspension from drugs. And ended up getting hit wrong. My lung collapsed, was rushed to the hospital. And first thing they did was they asked me, do you want to go unconscious or you just want to get really drugged up and then we can cut you open? I was like, get me as high as you possibly can.
Seems legit.
Surprise.
What a silly question.
Yeah, and after that, I was in the hospital for 3 days on a fentanyl drip. And was being given Perk 10s every hour or two on top of that.
Would be a 10 milligram Percocet,
yes.
Correct? All right.
So I get out, and she asked if I want a prescription for school, and I was like, yeah, obviously. So
it's like asking Colonel Sanders if he wants some fries for his chicken, you know?
Yeah, so I go back to school, and I'm getting prescribed Percocet once every 2 to 3 hours. They're very conscious about drugs at my school. It happens to be like a reformatory school. So
you've already ended up there, haven't you?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. So they're kind of on top of it, but I would cheek them and bring them back to my room.
Cheek them, everybody's in the joint knows what that means. Like, go ahead and tell us what that means.
Basically just they put it in your mouth, but don't swallow it, and then spit it back out when you leave the nurse's office. So I would cheek probably the first 3 or 4, and then, during my lunch, go in the bathroom, take them all. Did that until they told me I couldn't take them anymore. So I assumed they had thrown them out. Then I go home for summer break and find them in my mother's medicine cabinet, snooping around one day.
Innocently, I'm sure.
Yes. And that really.
How long before you had the bottle in your hand? How long before the pill was in your tummy?
10 seconds, 10 to 30 seconds at least. I mean,
yeah, if I can jump in here, there's a really valuable lesson from Frank's story, which is that this kid, here's a young guy who's 14, 15, 16, already way too deep into weed. You heard that. A binge alcohol drinker to blackout on weekend, clearly with substance abuse / dependency issues, moving towards addiction. A doctor unwittingly, I should say, pushed him over the edge.
That's
healthcare pro trying to ease his pain, unwittingly gives him way too much Percocet, and now this kid's off to the races. I think there's a real lesson there for healthcare professionals and parents who are taking their kid into surgery. You got to be honest with these people and open with their history. Otherwise, you're going to have a way too long of a supply of the wrong drugs in the kid's life and way too easily accessed.
Exactly, and we're talking about some serious, very, very addictive drugs, and they do. And I believe, and on behalf, I'm not defending necessarily physicians, but the fact of the matter, a doctor is taught get you out of pain. That's on their mind right away. And there's so many. And of course, I worked in an emergency room for quite a while, and found what we call the frequent flyers, and people who would be so desperate, and back me up on this, so desperate to get a shot of dope that they would take their hand and slam it into a car door, have somebody slam a car door on their hand, because they know the protocol for that would be to get narcotics. And that is how powerful this addiction can be. At this time, did you think you were addicted to anything?
No, I'd always joke around with my friends, be like, I was always the one who everyone was like, oh, that's that kid. I had that reputation in my hometown of being the biggest drinker, the biggest smoker, on top of being an all-star lacrosse player. So I kind of had a stigma to me. Everybody knew who I was 10, 15 towns over. I kind of embraced it at the time.
You've just defined the difference between famous and infamous.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
But yeah. So I'd always joke around and be like, oh, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. Just like,
I'm Irish. Right.
Laugh about it, But wasn't really till I came to Caron until I found out, or really realized. It was in the back of my head, I think,
But the fact of the matter wasn't really until you got here.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you heard from Frank was he spent years, 3-4 years, developing the identity of a partier, a stud athlete, and a partier, and he gained a reputation for that. And I think those years, the adolescent years, is when that's likely to happen.
And that's wonderful in that sociology.
That's right.
Hero.
And that's right. So why would he stop? And that's why rehab can't just take 28 days. You can't spend 3, 4, 5 years developing that identity, that reputation,
Persona.
and then undo that in 28 days. And so the reverse must be true. Over time, you immerse him in an adolescent and young adult culture of recovery. Over time, that's the identity development he creates for himself and maintains.
Terrific. We're going to find out more. We're going to find out a lot more about Frank here in just a minute. Thank you very much. You're listening to Trudge the Road Radio. It is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Their number again is 800-854-6023, and their website is caron.org. That's CARON.org. David Rotenberg and Frank back with us on Trudge the Road in just a moment here on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry concludes this week's show with David and Frank. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
At Northbound Treatment Services in Newport Beach, California, we believe that treatment is the beginning of a new way of life. Our brand signifies our own commitment to help our clients find new direction and strength on their road to recovery. Our mission is simple: to assist our clients in successfully celebrating 1 year of continuous sobriety. This mission is achieved through unique treatment models, individualized treatment plans, graduated phase systems, and exceptional staff, 12-step philosophies, and a strong alumni program. The Northbound experience focuses on effectively delivering innovative treatment. We are located in the beautiful and vibrant recovering community of Orange County, California. The Northbound experience takes our clients beyond treatment. We are Northbound.
Hi, everybody, please. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road Radio is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers, a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. Listen, if you're concerned about yourself, if you're concerned about a loved one, make this phone call. It's 800-854-6023. Or go to the website, all kinds of great information. It's caron.org. That's CARON.org. Trudge the Road Radio is a radio program dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to alcohol and drugs. Every bit as important. Family members and friends, you suffer tremendously. We know that, and we know you've got a lot of questions. Our goal here today is to answer as many of those questions as we can, and with the grace of the good Lord above, provide a solution to this incredible dilemma, which is the disease of addiction. Providing solutions, and we're so grateful to be here today at Caron. David Rotenberg joins us again. David is Vice President of Treatment here at Caron, specializing in adolescent and young adults. And again, we describe the new face of addiction and the crisis. Really, would you? It's really in this particular area of the country, I feel safe in saying that there is an epidemic.
The synergy of availability and we talked about with Frank last segment, Jer, the information out there, the ease of obtaining this stuff, there's no question that in and of itself is a crisis. No question.
Absolutely. All right, we're with Frank. He's 17 years old, and you told us a lot about kind of what got you here, but we want to get to what is the crisis. Now, you're taking Percocet, you're smoking high-grade marijuana, and you're using alcohol. You're 17 years old, you're an accomplished athlete, you're a student, and all of a sudden, woo, what came down?
Well, this summer after there's the Percocets going on, I was actually supposed to get drug tested by my mom. So I wasn't smoking weed at the time, knowing that it could stay in my system for 30, 40 days, however long. So I was just taking perks. And when I ran out of those, was out of commission for a few days. And then the alcohol is where I kind of picked up where I left off. And was drinking every single day very, very heavily.
For those of you in the drug testing domain, moms, parents, others who work with kids like this, the reason Frank stayed away from weed is because it can stay in your system up to 30 days. Opiates, on the other hand, may get out in 3 or 4. Alcohol, 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So kids who know they're being monitored will shift, Jer, and move in the other chemical direction. Okay, and that's really a criteria of chemical dependency diagnostics. Yeah, I can't be without it.
Exactly. So you're watching the clock. You're making sure you can get tested. You're using all the right drugs at the right time. Attaboy, you're an addict. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay, keep going.
So I was probably drinking about a fifth a day.
How much do you weigh?
Like 150 pounds. So
my goodness,
that's called lethal. That's it. To the average tempered drinker, if they drank that much, 150-pound person, they drop over dead. And what were you doing? Watching TV? Yeah, right. So,
massive tolerance.
Yeah, unbelievable tolerance.
It was crazy. I drink just to go to work in the morning, just to drive around. I love driving drunk, which was
there you go.
So stupid of me.
Of course, but when you're drunk, you got to get from point A to point B. We drive.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it started going downhill. 4th of July came, 3rd and 4th of July. Everybody knows what happens on those 2 days. I started experimenting with Molly, which is the pure form of ecstasy. Mm-hmm. And a couple weeks after that, my girlfriend's mom found out about my drinking, drugging, and experimentation with all that stuff in the presence of her daughter and told my mom. And that's pretty much how I started getting in trouble this summer. And then my girlfriend was like, "Oh, well, you have a drug problem." I was like, "Yeah, I do, don't I?"
And is she waiting out there for you if you get sober?
I hope so. You never know, but she cared enough about me to tell me I need to come to treatment, so I'm hoping she's still there.
You got a lot at stake. You got Division I lacrosse offers. You got a beautiful girlfriend out there. You got a mom who loves you. You had all that, and you still risked it to continue taking drugs. In fact, you got kicked out of 2 schools.
Yep. Where
you were the best lacrosse player on the team.
Yeah.
Prior to coming here. That gives you some insight into the world of addiction, Jer. Despite rational, logical thought says, hey, I'm going to be clean, I'm going to work out, I'm going to get my rest because I got Division I scholarships waiting for me. Mm-hmm. Frank did the opposite.
Exactly. And the consequences immense. How'd you get kicked out of school? Just getting caught with the stuff? Or?
The first school I got caught drinking at, that was more academics-wise, but the drugs and alcohol played a little bit of a part into it.
I'm sure so.
And then the second school I went to the year after, I was only there 3 months. Got caught smoking a couple times, and then I got caught stealing Robitussin from the local Rite Aid. So
that's getting,
had a bit of a problem there.
All right. Well, that maybe, was that the bottom? Was that what, said turn the clock and the door kind of opened up here? What happened?
After I got kicked out?
Yeah.
No, not at all. The week I got home, I started smoking again. Mm-hmm. So that was just kind of, at the time, I was like, I'm done drinking, I'm done smoking, I'm done with all that. And then right back at it, right when I got back home. First thing I did was call my drug dealer. Mm-hmm. There's that insanity, You see, well, I just got kicked out of school, but then again, here I am just doing the same things that got me kicked out.
Right.
It defies logic. It defies rational thought. That's exactly what I was saying before. Logic dictated that there was so much at stake, so much to lose for Frank, a kid who had so much going for him at the time. And he kept going. And in fact, he didn't just keep going. He never even missed a beat. He turned right back to it the moment his back was slightly off the wall.
Right, and back into it. All right, bring us to the crisis.
Yeah, so after my mom found out about the whole ecstasy and drinking problems that I was currently having, she thought there was something wrong after those 3 years of getting caught almost every other week with weed and drinking with my buddies and whatever. And it was me who was like, I think I should go to treatment, because she didn't want to send me anywhere. She threatened it, but was never really serious about it. Biggest enabler in my life, easily.
Sure.
But I kind of came forth and was like, I think I should go somewhere for the rest of the summer just to keep me out of trouble. I mean, don't want to get in any trouble with the police, don't want to get a DUI or anything like that.
Lock me up.
Yeah. So I looked into Caron a little bit and saw the 30-day program, and I was like, 30 days, I can do that easy,
The easier, softer way.
The easier, softer way. We've heard those words. Oh, yeah.
I was like, well, there's only 30 days left of summer, so I'll be back just in time for school.
Isn't it amazing that you hear his mom did not want to really send him away, and that is not unusual.
No.
In fact, parents think, oh my God, it's the worst thing I could do for my child. Sending him away, oh my God, God forbid. In fact, it's the most loving thing your mother could have done for you, Frank.
Yeah, all the opportunities she's given me, I think this has been the most important one yet. All that money she spent on me for boarding schools and private schools, I think, the money she spent on Caron is the best.
So what happened? All of a sudden, did you just find yourself leaving Boston and on your way here to Philly?
Yeah, actually the next day.
Okay.
So didn't think it would happen that fast, but my mom jumped right on the opportunity when I suggested it, and I was here. I think the day after I told her about it, and went through the adolescent primary male program, the 30 days. Had my FEP. And
what's that?
Family education program.
Yes.
We'll need to come back and talk about that. Go ahead.
But that's basically just where parents learn about the disease of addiction and how it can affect them as well as their children. And of course, the whole time, every time I saw her, I'd be like, "I'm going home, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to school, right? Get to go visit colleges and whatever." And she was kind of on board with it, because she saw a little bit of a development and growth in me from the 30 days I've been here. But then she got to the end of it, the last day, the recommendation day, and found out I was going to Young Men's Extended Care.
That, for you listeners, is another 90 days post-primary. The traditional 30 days is primary. 90 days of extended care is what a lot of our young men and women are recommended for, Jared. It's exactly what we spoke about.
It's intensive therapy, continuing intensive therapy.
They need more time. Their brains need to heal. Their parents need a break. Okay, their psychiatric issues need to be addressed. Their physical and mental and other psychological and spiritual needs need to be met. And 28 days is just not enough time to do it.
Because even a possessive 90 days after that, I mean, really, we're looking at a lifetime ahead of them to recover. So as much treatment as is possible would be, of course, ideal and maybe really what is necessary.
And when you look at outcome studies, that's exactly right. The longer you stay engaged in a multi-layered, multidisciplinary treatment approach, the better the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And for me, and getting to cite my own experience, was a year, a straight, solid year before I was able to, and have been able to maintain sobriety ever since then. So you get here, you've been here 30 days, now you found out you're going to stay a little while longer. Well, what do you think about that?
At first, I'd talked to my mom, and she said it was a possibility, so it had already been in the back of my mind thinking, I might go for the extra 90 days, which I wasn't too happy about, obviously, because everybody wants to go home. And me being an addict and a smooth talker, I kind of talk the talk for the first 30 days. I'm real good at that. Real good at,
I'll bet they caught on too.
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
they?
Oh, yeah. But, so at first I was a little, I was angry, but I got to WIMAC and realized that this is what's best for me. I can still go play lacrosse. I can still do everything I've set my life goals and everything I want to do with my life. I can still go out and do. It's just I'm going to be that much stronger. I'm going to be 90 days stronger.
A kid's getting sober and starting to really mature when he makes statements that are future oriented, that he can delay. They're healthy. He can delay gratification. Lacrosse will be there. My future will be there. But right now, I got to get sober. I got to get right. That's when do you hear that from a 17-year-old? And that's a sign of recovery and a sober, mature identity.
It absolutely is. Frank, we're going to pray for you, and we're going to continue to follow your progression here. But, I feel really good about where you are, and I think that you feel good about it, too. I can see it in your eyes, He's got that look in his eyes, that recovery look, you know what I mean?
It's great to watch from the front door when they first get here, and in many cases fight it to this kind of point.
Fight kicking themselves out of hell. That's what, into heaven, absolutely. We've got just a quick second, and I could the family education program here at Caron and at so many other treatment centers, this has been so important and such a vital role. If you could give just a little bit about what that is.
That's a combination of education, immersion in same peer type of situation. In other words, Frank's mother was able to come here and not feel lonely and isolated, like she was the only mom with a 17-year-old who this had happened to. In fact, she was surrounded by 6 or 7 other families
going through the same thing.
Same thing. High-functioning parents too, Jer. It's a double kick in the ass when the kid ends up at an addict. Where did I go wrong? I've been so successful elsewhere in my life, and so that kind of stuff feels like a magnified failure. So there's so many reasons beyond the education to do the family education at a place like Caron.
And it is the best, and we appreciate it. Frank, we're going to keep our eye on you, little brother. Thank you so very much for giving us your time, and it took guts. We appreciate it, and one day at a time, keep doing what you're doing, all right? You're in a wonderful place, and be grateful for that. David, thank you very much. David Rotenberg, Vice President of Treatment at Caron. This microphone is open to you anytime that you want to stop by. And to Mike, Father Bill, Doug, and everybody who has been so gracious to us, please pass on our gratitude, won't you? David, thank you. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers, a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, specializing in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. Their phone number is 800-854-6023. The website is caron.org. That's CARON.org. For Matt, the producer, and Rich, I'm Jerry. Thank you for being here on Trudge the Road Radio.
You've been listening to Trudge the Road. If you'd like to catch prior episodes, you can visit our website, TrudgeTheRoadRadio.com, and keep listening for new episodes on this great radio station, which is part of the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to Trudge the Road. The opinions expressed in the show are those of myself, Jerry, my co-host, Rich, and our guests, and not necessarily those of the Caron Treatment Centers. For more information regarding the show, go to our website, TrudgeTheRoadRadio.com.